What would be the benefit? What would benefit biological creators to send out their robots or their Exobot creation into the universe? I think it would be more sending them into the home galaxy. It's one thing to acknowledge how tied to this immediate planetary system we as biological creatures are, and another to see that even our robotic creations are limited to this galaxy. As I understand things, galaxies are generally moving away from each other, making this option more and more a non-option. In today's world, we have politicians and scientists working to send robots to the near planets. Mars is the main focus. Why? What benefit to us here on Earth to have such resource invested in investigating Mars or even the Moon? Here on Earth, where it is a scientific fact that life, biological life, indeed exists, and we are wondering if there is life on Mars. Here on Earth, where it is the greatest need to invest in, not just the species collective and its survival, but the potential to make a paradise or a heaven on Earth. And our most trusted leaders in many fields are promoting our imaginations to go out there and discover. It's quite insane from one point of view. Now, it may be a bad idea to send off Exobots into the galaxy to replicate and add to itself, plant seed on viable planets, but eventually this will happen, especially if we actually find a cure for our own insanity and get to that point where it is possible to develop the necessary science for these particular Exobots. And we may not get to that point. We find ourselves as a biological species to be within a universe which has no apparent reason for existing. It seems completely devoid of other intelligent life forms, such as our own, and is obviously hostile to biological flesh. There is all reason to send out Exobots, even that they will outsurvive their creators, just for the fact that we can, and that it might thus find a use for the universe. Obviously, the logic's mind would say that self-replicating would have to cease if there is no longer material to use for that purpose. Until then, logic tells us there's an opportunity. Now, the question of rogue bots is interesting, but maybe not as probable as we might think. Part of the biological creature quest for answers involves finding the source of their existence. We don't even know for sure whether we ourselves are not programmed, but as I said, we would have to create Exobots which had the ability to reason and to make decisions in situations which no programmer would have thought to include. So what about the possibility of rogue bots? I think firstly they would have to be able to sneak around outside the collective mind of the non-rogue. They would not be able to hide. Even if one started to think outside of the agenda, it cannot hope to encourage others to join. And to join what exactly? Secretively. Indeed, why is there rebellion anyway? In a biological species, such a thing occurs most often when things are not good for all concerned. So say this rogue wanted to see biological life on a suitable planet and convince a portion of that whole Exobot program to join its program, and say that it wanted to play God over a creation of biological creatures. For what purpose? I'm thinking about that let's say that this rebel battalion of robots were consigned a sector of the galaxy to do the experiment and to be confined to that sector while the rest of its kind continued with their task. But for what purpose? Perhaps, maybe, to discover something of its creator. I think there is far more chance that biological creatures, if they were capable of doing so, would be the contender for this kind of pointless rogue behaviour. Robots don't have egos. As your question suggests, with the ability to think for themselves, they might develop egos. Inevitably, if rogue bots did branch out and away from the exploration aspect of this, or as you suggest, depart from the rules of the perfect galactic robot civilization, they might simply be deactivated by the mind of the collective robot civilization and reconstituted. Why? Because they would simply represent something which, if allowed to grow, would want to eventually consume the galactic civilization rather than be that civilization, and logic would intervene. This is why I think it would be highly unlikely, because of logic. It is not about emotions and other motivating aspirations which biological creatures or their biological creators have. It's not about trade or politics or religion or culture or suppression by hardwired programming. Exobots would see no logic in wandering down the path to begin with. What the question or the statement suggests is duality, good robots and bad robots, and some competition for supremacy and ultimate winners with points to prove. This is a thing we can understand because human beings behave like this, being biological creatures. We would have to grow out of such behaviour and thinking in order to advance. There is no point to prove.